Alright, friends. Hello and welcome back to another episode of our Ultra Supreme Max Difficulty Challenge Run, or as we like to just call it, Pain. We are back, and if you are new here, here are the rules that we have to follow for this run. We have to play on the hardest asteroid on the highest difficulty, getting all the achievements. Not allowed to pick our duplicates. Bunch of other restrictions here that we've had to follow. Things are going alright, I would say. Probably a little slow, but that's okay. We are now up to 20 duplicates, and our colony is running pretty decently, I would say. In the last video, we just got up our setups to start mutating seeds. Here's a couple of them right here that we need to research as soon as we get this thing powered, which for some reason has been waiting a long time for that to be plugged in. But when somebody decides to plug it in, we'll call it good. The one thing that I do need to fix on this, though, is I need to probably create a bleachstone setup. Actually, you know what? Let me think about this. What I could do is I want to replace this oxygen setup. Partly because the morbs are cool, but they do definitely have a ceiling. This is using a lot more power and a lot more resources, and especially my computer's resources, because there's so many critters in here, and that can really stack up. So just for the performance sake, I think we might need to retire this setup. And I will temporarily replace this with a rust burning type of setup. Reason being is because that'll give us a lot of chlorine, and then we can use all the extra chlorine to send into this room so that our salt vines can grow without depriving these balm lilies of it too. And hopefully we can get this going just a little bit faster. We'll eventually switch on to electrolyzers, but for right now, I think it'd be interesting to set that up, and also good for this. So, yeah, I think I'm going to deconstruct this. It's definitely served its purpose. We've ran for almost 1,000 cycles without ever producing any oxygen off of anything, like, legitimate. At least from this perspective. On the other asteroid, we have at least used the polluted dirt and stuff like that to get oxygen, but we haven't really made like an electrolyzer setup or used algae or anything like that. So pretty interesting. But yeah, so I'm just going to deconstruct this and replace it with a setup that's going to produce some extra chlorine for us. So we'll kind of get that started. I'll try to do a little bit more funsy type of montages in this one, since we're trying to keep things a little quicker and a little snappier. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, first little part of this setup is done. Let's just configure everything that we just built, and I'll kind of run you through it. So we have 4 rust deoxidizers in here. Rust deoxidizers are going to take rust and salt in order to produce oxygen, and a little bit of chlorine on the side, which we will definitely make use of. So, we need the rust and salt to be sent in here, and just like we've been doing in a bunch of other places, I just set up a whole bunch of storage bins so that we can ask for a huge amount of it all at once and not need to have my duplicates constantly bring it here. It'll just be like, get it once and then we'll load it in by auto sweeper for a long time. So I just have those 2 conveyor loaders sending into some receptacles up here. So one for rust, one for salt, and then just some auto sweepers that can load each of these rust deoxidizers. We're going to use this conveyor loader for anything that is not rust and salt. Just because another side effect of this will be iron ore, which is going to be very handy since we are metal poor on this asteroid, and we do need to make a good amount of steel. So I will deselect those 2. Oh, I forgot to hook this up to power, so we're going to have to get that too. There we go. Priorities, let's get our construction up here, just so they can get that going. So there, we have our rust and salt that should be going to these bins and then eventually getting loaded into these conveyor loaders, which we can set just a little bit higher than the actual bins themselves, so that the auto sweeper is wanting to move stuff in there. And yeah, everything's within reach, so that should be good. The morbs are going to be things we exterminate here pretty soon, but one other thing is I need to filter what those bottom pumps are going to be pumping out, because they're going to be having, that should be all of the chlorine. The stuff up here will only turn on if there's enough air pressure. Down here is going to be running pretty much constantly to offset the production of these rust deoxidizers. these two pumps ought to account for about half of what these rusty oxidizers are producing, but all of the chlorine. So I'm going to filter it down here to grab the chlorine gas off the line and send it up into these tanks, and then the stuff that's not chlorine is just going to be sent out of this vent. I actually hooked this up totally wrong, which is not a good thing to do. So I need to actually run this vent back. I guess we'll send as much of it out here as possible, and then the rest of it, we're just going to need to cross all these lines, which is such a mess. This is spaghetti if I ever saw it. So there we go. I guess just something like this. This is only going to be a temporary setup, so we're not going to have this forever, so don't worry too hard. But yeah, so anything else that is not chlorine, just going to get set up on our line and eventually blown out of one of these two vents into our base. Since most of it will be oxygen, that'll be good. I think that we have enough air pressure, and I think that we are pretty much ready to turn this on. So the top here is going to get rebuilt as well, but I can turn on the bottom first and then rebuild the top while these things are running. So let's go ahead and start to exterminate some morbs. Guess I'll set this to something pretty high so that we can see the massacre that we've all been waiting for. For everybody that has really not liked these things, here you go. I hope you enjoy this, because there's going to be a lot of morb death. My duplicates are just going to be here killing stuff all day. This will also, ironically, produce a lot of polluted oxygen, because when they die, they give off a whole bunch. So, one of the weirder ways to produce oxygen for sure, having a big extermination party of these morbs. There are so many in here. Jeez, there's still 285. So we've got a long way to go. But in the meantime, we can actually just go ahead and turn this stuff on. The only thing I don't want to do is start to just send out polluted oxygen into the base, because that could cause a problem, so I guess we'll wait a little bit. Yeah, this is gonna take a while. So let me have my duplicates do this, and then we'll start this up. Alright, we're down to our last handful of morbs here. Taking a long time to get them all out of here. But the, it's unmorbin time, if I gotta say so myself. So, let's go ahead and turn this system on. So now we have a whole bunch of polluted oxygen down here. We're gonna have to deal with just a little bit of it, but it won't be that bad. I also need to get the power wires up here, so we'll have to wait for that to be on before we turn the system on. Otherwise, we're just going to be starting to send chlorine out in places we don't want. Okay, there we go. Now we should be able to turn these on, and there should be some rust and salt that's nearby. Why is it not sending it in here is the thing that I'm confused about. We have salt. Is this asking for salt? Oh, it's not at a high enough priority. So let me get some rust kind of rushed down here really quickly so that we can see this in action. But the other thing that I need to mention is the cooling setup. So this is going to produce a decent amount of heat. We just have the same loop coming out of our cold ethanol like we've done in a bunch of other places. So just water coming up, looping around, and heading back down. It ought to keep this area pretty cool, all things considered. So yeah, that'll be a nice way to cool it down. I didn't buy enough time before they brought rust. Why are they doing this to me? There we go. Thank you, nails. See, now if we do that, we can just deprioritize it, and it'll want to load into the conveyor loader, and that ought to give us plenty to at least get us started. So there. Now that we have all this set up, these are starting to pump, and this will start producing some chlorine here and there that will then get filtered out. Most of this is going to be polluted oxygen right now, but the stuff that's not, we'll go ahead and use. There's some chlorine right there. Finally, we're getting some. It'll start to be a lot more over time. But yeah, this ought to improve this setup quite a bit. Let me reshape the top of this too, because now that we've pumped all the polluted oxygen out of here, we really shouldn't need all of these deodorizers anymore, which is nice because we won't need to ship any more sand and spend sand on this. So let me rebuild that really quick. Alright, let's give this setup a try. I'm going to replace all these mechanized airlocks, by the way. Just a little bit at a time so I don't shut down the whole system at the same time. These pumps up here are just all going to be connected to Atmos sensors. I'm going to make sure that we're above at least, I don't know, maybe 800? I need to play around with these numbers to figure out where those should probably be, just to make sure that no chlorine is getting in the top pumps, but also that enough is being pumped out to the right places. There's still a little bit of polluted oxygen in there, by the way, which is probably going to damage some of my suit docks. But if we just kind of close this off, I think this is pretty much ready to go. And then the setup over here should at least have enough to grow the salt vines at minimum. But these things use up so much. It's really wild how much they use. If we get a chlorine vent, that'll definitely help us. If we start to get desperate, we might start making bleachstone, but we'll kind of see. We'll let this run for a little while and let it run at full power and see what it does. So, yeah, I think we'll call this setup pretty much done. Let's talk about the other asteroid really quickly. The idea with the other asteroid is I want to mine the rest of this out and start getting everything shipped to the center so that I can send all the useful stuff back to my main base. And then probably leave one duplicate behind like I typically do, just to make sure that they're there to keep the base up while everybody else is gone. So one thing that I need to do is just create a setup over here that's going to be used to warm up all the materials that get shipped out of the bottom. I'm not going to be shipping everything because there's no reason to ship all the ice and stuff out, but there is a lot of metal ore and stuff like that. But I don't want to be shipping metal ore up there that's at like, you know, -7 DC or whatever, or -85 in this case. There's also some rust and stuff too that we could burn for chlorine. So yeah, lots of stuff to go on this asteroid, but the biggest thing really is just to get the rest of it mined out. I did get it all protected by steel tiles. That was one of the biggest reasons why we set up the metal refinery the way we did in the last video, and that was so we could get a lot of steel out for jobs like that. By the way, we're done taking rust here, so we can turn these things off and just let it sit. So yeah, let me check my notes here and make sure that we're doing everything we want to do. Oh, one thing that we really need to do is we need to start getting databanks from space. So I have started a little rocket up here that we're going to be using to create databanks. We'll build out the interior in just a little bit, and I'll kind of walk through that since I do have that in my spaced out walkthrough, but it is useful to go over again, I think. And then we're going to start running some databank missions here just because we need that in order to complete the rest of the research tree. Our research, you know, we've gotten pretty much everything that we can. I guess we could get started on some of the other ones that require the space research and just fill them out with the other types here first. But yeah, completing the research tree is probably something we want to do soon, just because within this video we're going to be doing a lot of things that involve some pretty advanced and later game research. Get my plants planted in here, by the way. There we go. Getting all these nice looking bedrooms going. So yeah, I think I'm going to take a little bit of time to give my duplicants some commands and kind of clean up the base over here. Then we're going to get started on the databank rocket once my duplicants can get up there and build the exterior. We'll just kind of build out the interior. I'll explain kind of what you need for living out in a rocket for that long. So yeah, we'll get to that soon. Alright, as we continue to monitor our GMO irradiating plants experiment, this one's starting to get way too cold. So just going to run a really simple setup just to get this warmed up a little bit. So all I'm going to be doing to warm this up is just right below where the plants are. Going to put down a liquid tepidizer. I don't want to make it out of uranium though. I don't know why I defaulted to that. Give me something not radioactive. Funny thing is that cobalt is radioactive in certain forms of it, as far as I know. So, thermosensor, we're just going to plop that down next to the liquid tepidizer. And then we just need a couple more tiles here. One is going to be a vent, but I'm going to put that on last. The other one is going to be an automation wire. So it'll set up in a way that we can open and close the vent that's going to be here. And then we'll just create a layer of regular or like insulated tiles underneath it. And then we can set up our settings here just to make sure that we're warming it up enough to get that up to a reasonable temperature once again, and we're not struggling with keeping those happy. So yeah, the other thing that I really should have mentioned and that I didn't and probably wasted a round of seeds is you need to make sure to ban some of the mutants from being sent to some of these places where they could be spent. So if I were to get a mutant sleet wheat grain or a mutant nosh bean, if I don't toggle this, they could use it in a recipe if they don't bring it to the analyzer first. And I do see the nosh bean as one of the things that was in here, so I think I got an irradiated nosh bean and then put it into food because I forgot to ban it. So yeah, gotta make sure to do that. Alright, we'll get the setup done within this little segment here. So this setup, we can just link it up to a conductive wire and get a heavy watt wire connected to a transformer here. So there you go. That'll be how we power it. Once they get these other pieces up, we'll build the floor and then we'll fill this up and get it running. The other thing that we're doing is we're trying to get databank rockets up, but I'm actually going to do 3 of them. So I did expand this a little bit to be a larger area. We're not going to run that many rockets from this area, just enough to get a big batch of databanks, and then we won't really need to do it anymore. But the thing that I'm struggling with a lot in this base, and something we should probably do, is set up our transit tubes. We have a silly amount of plastic because of all of the Dreco farming that we have done, and it's probably about time that we get these transit tubes up and running. So all I'm really going to be doing, I have reserved this third space in this middle area for transit tubes, and I'm just going to use this as kind of like my hub for all of the transportation that we need to be doing. I could get rid of this artifact analysis station and move it somewhere else because this is a really valuable spot to have a drop-off. And we also do have enough power to push this right now, so lots of hydrogen generators. I need to get another one in here, by the way, because we got rid of the station that was going to be providing chips to it. I think it's just too much duplicate labor. Not really worth it. It's not like I'm short on hydrogen anyway, so probably technically not as efficient, but whatever. I have so much hydrogen, and I'd rather have the duplicate time anyway, so there we go. Yeah, I'll get those things set up. Okay, cool. The transit tubes, yeah, I'm just going to draw a line kind of up and down through the entire base so that when my duplicates need to actually get out here and work, there'll be a transit tube to drop them off instead of them having to climb all the way up here when they need to do something. So, yeah, let's get into building all the transit tubes out. Okay, back to where we started the last segment, which is this water heater, basically. These liquid tepidizers are incredibly efficient in terms of how quickly they heat things up, so I guess a really general tip, if you're looking for one, is use this instead of a space heater. It is so much stronger for the power that you put into it. So, yeah, anyway, got a little thin layer of water here after we closed everything off. We have a switch that can allow more water in if we ever needed it, but we really shouldn't. Now this is at a decent temperature, so we should hopefully get a mutant here pretty soon. We did get a mutant fungal spore, though. It should be researched here any second, as it's been shipped back to the main asteroid. So, yeah. Let's check back over here, where we got our transit tubes all pretty much done. There's only a little bit left down at the bottom. But the idea here is just that if your duplicates need to cross huge areas, it's so much faster for them to do it by transit tube than it is to do by a ladder or a fire pole. Fire poles going down are honestly really fast. There's that seed analysis, by the way. They are pretty fast, but going up especially is where these things shine, or going laterally. I think I will set up a transit tube to land here so I can take this copper volcano. And that's an example of, like, if you need to get to the corners of the maps, or maybe over here or something like that, these are much more efficient than your duplicates running there. Especially if you have the power to push it. These are very expensive when it comes to power. Did I not hook this up? No, I did. Okay, whatever. They're very expensive when it comes to power, so we need to make sure we have a really solid grid before we do that. So yeah, we got that. Now my duplicates are just going to be working on getting this area a little bit more fleshed out so that we can build 3 of our research rockets at a time. So we can go make all of the databanks all at once, and then this will probably be defunct because in this same video we're going to make a gigantic rocket setup so that we can start mining out the map. The achievement that we need to start working on. I did talk about it a little bit in the last... Oh, we have an achievement that's pending, by the way, so let's do this first. There we go, traveling by transit tubes. We're totally tubular. Alright. I'm being laughed at, but that's literally the name of the achievement. We have made progress on the GMO AOK list here. So dust taps are done, bog buckets are done, thimble reeds are done. Yeah, so we're slowly making progress here, but really not as bad as I thought it would be. Just need to make a bunch of weird setups. Our chlorine strategy, by the way, has really come through. So we have a lot of chlorine, and there's a whole bunch that's built up as well. So yeah, this strategy to get this part done really helped out. Once this is done, we can replace this again with a setup that just uses all the water that we have, because we have a lot of warm water that we could just pump out of here anytime to use for the electrolyzer setup. So we will use that and switch on to that eventually. So let's just have my duplicants use these brand new transit tubes and build out this area. Okay, let's build the inside of a rocket and then copy-paste it twice. Alright, so this one, by the way, remember that you can destroy this rocket control station. It doesn't have to be right there if it's not in a great position. So, I've talked about this design a few times in some other videos, but I think it's worth recovering here, just because I like this design a lot for a smaller rocket, but of course there's always a ton of different ways to do these things. So the way I'll typically do these rockets is start off by asking, like, what type of things are my duplicants going to need while they're out here without stressing them out too badly. So, for example, I could roll without ever making a wall toilet. But my duplicants will get very stressed by doing that. It's usually not worth it because, especially the ones that are coming out here to do databanks, are going to need to be out there for a long time, and you don't want them to be getting stressed and having stress reactions. So, kind of just talking over while I do this. But the first thing I'm doing is basically just getting a wall toilet, and I will need to run some water up here so that we can actually fill that up. So, it'll need to be clean water. This will be an adventure to get it all the way up here, but we need to run... Yeah, we're going to need to run this, like, all the way up. We could probably use some of this warm water that's over here too, which is here. Like, we could start using some of this warm water in there, but we also don't want to overheat the duplicant and the machinery inside there too, which is a little bit easier than you'd think it would be. So I guess we'll just use some of our cool water, and we'll make sure that we have enough cool water for other things. So I will need to run a pipe all the way up here. So yeah, one thing is obviously the toilets. The second thing, and probably things I should have started with because it's a lot more important, is oxygen. So I like to save up all the algae that I get for space travel, just because it's one of the smaller ways to generate oxygen and a very stable way to do so. So if we look up how much algae we've collected so far, not a lot, only because this asteroid doesn't really spawn with any natively. I wonder if I'm actually sending some back from the other asteroid, because I should be, but I feel like I'm not. I feel like I'm definitely one of those people that... Oh, never mind. I was just going to say, I feel like one of those people that forgets to do something, but then remembers that I forgot to do something. So apparently I didn't remember correctly that time. So we do need oxygen, and we will also need some bins to bring supplies up. I'll create 2 bins just because it's a little bit cleaner if we're asking for 2 different things. So we do need algae. We also need power while we're in here. So we will need to grab a power outlet. And there's a couple of different places you could put it. I like to put it on the wall right next to this ladder because my duplicants can get up here, and this is where I'm going to put the rocket control station, by the way, which you need in order to actually leave. But I like to put it here because you can't really fit a building here anyway, so that's a good place to put it. The other thing that we're going to need is if a duplicate is in here and constantly breathing and putting out carbon dioxide, we need a way to filter that. So also want to put in a mini gas pump, hook it up to a gas element sensor to make sure that we are only sending it out, like only blowing out the stuff that this gas pump will suck up if it's like carbon dioxide or something sitting down here that we don't want. So the automation that we're going to be using for this is going to be the gas element sensor hooked up to a NOT gate because we're going to be detecting for oxygen. So if it's anything that's not oxygen, I want to send it out. And then that can be connected to a filter gate just to make sure we're not throttling it on and off too much and sending more than is necessary out. So something like this, we can wire it up. Both of those things are going to need power. So there, something like that. And because this is where we're going to make databanks, we need a space to make databanks, but first I need a couple things. I need all the supplies that we're going to be taking, and I'll usually just put them in the rocket and have them sit on the ground. Then I will get rid of these bins because I don't need them while I'm up in the air. Then we can build the actual station here. We'll also need a refrigerator to ask for some food, which we don't have really great food to take with us. It's going to last for a long time. The berry sludge is actually something interesting that we could start banning our duplicates from eating so that we can save it for space travel. So we might as well do that. Where is it? Here we go. So you can ban the berry sludge. The reason it's so valuable is because berry sludge literally never rots. So you'll be able to have it forever. Your duplicates can eat it whenever, and it's a pretty good food quality. So yeah, something like this is what I would like to do. We will also usually need to remember to scrub the duplicates that are going to be going and assign certain duplicates the rocketry skills. So I'll just pick 3 of these duplicates. I don't really care who it is that much. And we will have them go along. Actually, one thing that's interesting that I've never thought about before is whether a ceiling light makes sense here to speed up the process. I guess we can drop one and see if that helps. So I'll go ahead and put that down. We'll hook this up to power. And yeah, we'll start building this out, get all the supplies. I'll only show 1, but I will build 3 behind the scenes. Just because all 3 of them are going to be pretty much the same. Then we'll launch all 3 of them at the same time and get them spinning. Okay, we are ready to set this rocket up and start asking for supplies. So the first thing we need is a lot of plastic, because that's what the databanks are made out of. I don't think we're going to need this much, but I have seen duplicates burn through more. So I'm going to ask for 10,000 kilograms of plastic, and I can't remember exactly how much algae we have. I think it's like 32 tons, so let's ask for like 8 per rocket, just to leave a little bit more for the other ones we are going to be talking about in this video. So we'll be asking for algae. We also need to hook up our pump to send out everything that we don't want. Fortunately, this only really works when the rocket is out there. Otherwise, you have to build a vent to get it to actually vent when it's landed. Building lead tiles here on the top, which I kind of glossed over because I was talking about something else at the time. So yeah, lead tiles at the top here just to help slow the radiation absorption. Which is going to be a little bit of a concern on this harder difficulty, so we'll have to see how our duplicates do with that. Most of the time, they're usually okay about avoiding it, but even in the worst spot, 50 rads per cycle, we can also change their schedules while they're out there to make them use the toilets more often, getting rid of that radiation. So yeah, lots of ways we can deal with that. So we need to set up our gas element sensor for oxygen because it's hooked into a NOT gate, then hooked into a filter gate and into our gas pump. Filter gate, I don't know, we can set it for like 30 seconds. You basically just only want it to pump out when we are sure that the bottom layer of this is carbon dioxide. We don't need to be that precious because we're going to be doing a lot of mining and getting a whole bunch of algae that way. But yeah, that's kind of how to set this thing up. Once these bins are filled up on my duplicates bringing stuff, we'll talk about getting rid of that, building the station, and then we will get the... we need water filled up in these first, but we'll get the duplicates all spec'd out, and we'll get them out there and start getting them making databanks. All right, I think we're ready to go. So we have food out here now, which I'm going to deconstruct the fridge because it's taking up valuable room. In each of these rockets, I'm also going to track resources that are in here that we need. So algae and plastic, because if either of those run out, I'm going to want to know about it so I can get them home and get those replaced. But the station that we need to go ahead and throw in here is this orbital data collection lab. We need to be able to power it too. So we'll throw those into each of the 3 rockets really fast, and then we will get them out of here. The 3 of them that I actually set up for this is 3 of the newer duplicates. So I did name them differently. You can see them named the data dupes. So we need to spec them out to be able to fly the rocket. And then anything that'll help them while they're out there. I'm not sure if that actually counts as operating, but I need to see what kind of morale they're going to have out there, because they won't have like their Great Hall or Nature Reserve or bedroom or anything like that. So we'll see. But at minimum, I do need this rocket piloting on all 3 of them. So we'll spec them out. I did skill scrub them earlier, so we've got that taken care of. Then, yeah, we'll build it in all 3 and then we'll go. Okay, one of the rockets is out there. Second one's leaving right now. Here goes the third one as Harold gets in there. On all 3 of these, I want them to take off their suits, partially because I don't want them to use it, like, and damage it and stuff like that over time. But the more important thing is I don't want them to use the exploit of basically having infinite oxygen. I'd rather, like, play more honestly and just have it be done the way that they intended. So, yeah, definitely an exploit there. On these databanks, let's get these up here. I think that this can be sped up, both with the light, because he's in a lit workspace, and by adding extra operating points. I'm pretty sure. So let's do that really quickly so they get as much done as possible. I don't know how high up I can allow this to go. We're just going to have to keep an eye on their morale, because they won't have their bedrooms, they won't have their bathrooms, all that fun stuff. So Amari's good to go. Let's get Bert good to go here. Hit forever. Take off your suit. There we go. And let's get Harold going as well. Take off your suit. There. So we should have everything for them to live out here for quite a while. So we'll leave them out here. We'll try to complete the research tree maybe within the scope of this video, depending on how fast we can get everything done. But yeah. Hopefully we'll have that done so we don't need to worry about it anymore, and then we can, like, decommission these rockets or use them for shipping or something like that later. So, yeah. I think what the plan's going to be now is we need to set up a real rocket setup so that we can start mining the nearby asteroids. So, I'm going to create a setup first that's going to protect everything from all the space junk that's going to come down. This might take more metal than I can actually afford, so I might have to do a kind of weird setup at first to get this to work. The thing that I really want to do is I think we might need to start getting into blast shot. That's a way that we can do it because our metal is still pretty low. Let me see how much we have. Yeah, our metals are not great, and I want to save the iron for steel production, so I can't really set up like a gigantic mesh tile setup. We're going to need a lot of steel, so I'm going to probably start using blast shot at first. We might convert to something else depending on how that performs. But that was part of the reason why securing all these volcanoes on both of the asteroids was so important, was so we could make constant blast shot. We also will need to make petroleum, so I'm going to create a petroleum conversion setup right here. Just going to be with a regular petroleum refinery. So, I think it's an oil refinery. Yeah, we're just going to create one of these, set them right here. I'll border it with some metal tiles so that it shares its temperature with the steam, so that we can get as much out of that as possible. And then the natural gas that we create, I guess we could either vent or we could hook it up into this system as well and kind of send it down into this tank. But I don't really care that much about the natural gas that gets produced. There's also potentially the option to create a boiler, but I don't really have a volcano or a heat source that's strong enough for that right now. So I think I'm not going to bother with that, and we'll just go with a regular refinery. So yeah, I'll be working on that right here. Alright, our duplicates are starting to run out of food, so I think it's time to send them back home. So let's get them all back home here really quickly, which all we should need to do is change our destination back to this. I'm pretty sure they have an open space to land, but let's double check. I think I left these doors open. Yeah, okay, so we should be good. Rockets are just going to re-land. I think this might be enough databanks for the rest of the game. I'm not 100% sure, but what I like to do is, just to make sure they bring the databanks back down, just put a bin right next to where they're going to be used. And we'll just drop that here, and my duplicates can run my databanks in there to make sure we can get the rest. Then we can complete the research tree, which we may be able to do in this video depending on how much longer it goes. The biggest thing that we need to start getting up is our blast shot maker, but we don't have petroleum yet. So as soon as I get all the lines connected, which was the last thing that I'm waiting on, we'll get that blast shot rolling, and then we will start claiming our space biome, I guess, by defending the meteors that are going to be hitting us and sweeping the rest out with miners or auto miners, whatever those are called. Robo miners. I don't know the name of anything, in case you can't tell. So we'll get that up here in just a second. Alright, I think we're going to have to go on one more run for databanks. So I've just refilled all the refrigerators in each of the rockets with berry sludge, at least enough to stay out there for a little while. We should already have enough algae and plastic loaded into each one of these, so I think we can just send those duplicates and they can build their own databank making machine while they're out there. Probably should wait for this asteroid. Well, no, these are pretty weak asteroids. I think we can just go ahead and open up and send them off here. So, yeah, we'll just choose a destination for them, and we'll get them all out there, and we'll get more databanks coming back so we can finish the research tree. The biggest thing that we need to do, though, once this opens up and can actually be sent out, is we should start getting our petroleum running so we can start getting something to deal with these meteors that are coming down. And prevent them from dealing damage to any buildings that we have up here. So we don't need to constantly micromanage opening and closing doors like this. So, what we're going to do, we'll get those guys sent off, is we're going to get the refinement process all ready. So we did build this out, and let's go ahead and hook it up for the first time. Which I have it in a room that is basically bordering steam, so that any heat that's generated from this can be cooled down to at least a semi-manageable level. And then it's going to run through the cobalt tiles here as it comes up and out of the machine. The setup that I have is going to be one that the petroleum will kind of chill in a reservoir here. And I have it set up to be on some automation so that it'll eventually stop asking duplicates to come in here and refine, so that they're not coming in here for such a tiny amount. Eventually, this area will get hotter than the steam, so it will make sense to have it connected to the steam eventually, only because this will be constantly producing heat. So yeah, everything in here is made of steel, by the way. And then the temperature of the petroleum will eventually be regulated down to a reasonable degree by the time it gets up to here. So I'm just going to create a quick drop in for the petroleum. Just something really simple. So we're going to do a pitcher pump right here, and a liquid vent, and then just a... Whoops, we want the vent to be higher, actually. So that the bottom can be something to detect the level of petroleum that's in here, so that we're only asking for more in this drop if we need more. So something like that. And then the actual station itself to produce the blast shot. Just going to be chilling right down here. We could set up some shipping, and I probably will eventually once we have some more metal, to automatically bring the refined metal to the blast shot maker. And it will automatically be loaded and that kind of stuff, except for the pitcher pump. The duplicates will probably still have to do that. So once we get the blast shot maker up, let me rush this really quickly. All we should need to do is specify the type of metal that we want to use for it. And since we're getting a whole lot from our volcanoes, we can really pick either one. I'll probably pick gold and have it just use that one, since the gold is less conductive than all the cobalt that we could use for other reasons. So probably just do something like that. Man, it's really taking these duplicates forever to get this, but the idea here is we are just going to... Oh, let me specify these guys out for food really quickly. Get your food on. Where are you? Oh, you're in a rocket, of course. You're going to be in your own. So just going to specify them to allow them to eat the berry sludge again. Let's destroy all their fridges, by the way, and get them to rebuild the buildings that they need to produce databanks. Let's also get them out of their suits. Get out of your suit. Out of your suit. There. Okay, so the whole point of this is to create a way to deal with the... Oh, we need somebody that actually has the skills for this. To create a way to deal with actually stopping the impacts of the meteors. So you can basically do one of two things to deal with that. You can either build a whole bunch of bunker doors, which involves a lot of steel, and then you can dig out the remnants. The problem with stuff like this is the remnants can extend up quite far, so you could eventually have to come back and dig all this stuff out with duplicates. So the other option is to use blast shot and just blast these things. It will still unfortunately drop regolith, so you still do need to dig some stuff out. So unfortunately, these are the most annoying meteor combinations possible. The ones that could leave regolith and slime, and ice also really complicates things too. So there's a lot of ways that this could be very annoying. But I think we're going to try a blast shot and robo miner setup, and we'll see what we get with that. So the blast shot setup, all we're going to need with the petroleum... Oh, I think we actually are supposed to route the petroleum in. Okay. I'm mistaking this for another building that we have to do it manually. So we don't actually need this drop at all. We will eventually use this drop for our molecular forge. So I'm still going to leave it there, but the actual petroleum that comes in here, you can just route straight in. And then the blast shot that you want to create, we actually can't create it out of gold. Interesting. So I guess we could just choose cobalt and we'll just do it forever. And once we start getting a good buildup of blast shot, we're going to start heading out into the space biome to set up our blasters and our setup to dig out any of the extra regolith. So we'll start getting on that as soon as we have some blast shot to get started. I'm also going to need a cooling setup that is nearby, so I might just create one really quickly right here that's going to be very similar to what we already have. Going to be easier to do that than route our cooling all the way across the whole map. So I'll create a new cooling setup right here, and it'll be very similar to what we have going on right here. And it will just be used to keep our space setup cool. So yeah, let's get started on that actually. Alright, now that we've got this part all built out, we just need to wait a little while for everything to fill up and kind of be ready to cool our setups out here, but we can at least get started on building the buildings that we need, and then we can dig out the rest of this when we're ready to turn everything on. So what I want to do is find roughly a height that I want everything to be at, so they're all relatively the same. So I think right here is probably the highest that we can go. So I'm just going to start building some tiles here to let me know where I want everything to be. So I guess we could start about right here. Let me open this up. And these tiles can basically be like where my base begins and where space ends. So we could just do something like this and start digging it out. And then at each one of these little blocks, I'm going to want to put a couple of buildings that are going to defend us from meteors and also dig out any of the debris that drops down. So the first thing that I want to do is put down a robo miner. I want to put that right here on the edge. And it doesn't really matter what I make it out of that much, only because they're going to be cooled by something, and we're going to protect these so that nothing really falls on top of them. So above each robo miner, I want to drop a couple of tiles like this, and then in the middle, I want to put a blast shot cannon or whatever it's called. Meteor blaster, there you go. How about a blast shot cannon? There you go. Just making up my own names. On either side of these, I'm just going to be dropping robo miner so that we can protect. Like, the idea behind these robo miners is they can dig out everything. They want to be protected from the stuff that falls, only because it's going to be so hot. I don't want to have to pay for the extra cooling if I don't have to. So I'm going to put 2 robo miners on each side, and we'll see how well this works. But they're basically going to cover each other's area above where we are protecting them. And then the meteor blaster is just going to be sitting here in the middle, and that'll shoot everything that kind of comes in range. We'll clear out a bunch of debris here and see how far it covers to know that if we can fit 2 rocket platforms in between these, or if we need extra space or whatever we need to do. So let's first at least get this all built out so that we know how much space this is all going to take up, and then we will see if we just need to plop one more on the other side here and everything is going to be covered, or if we need to rebuild this a little bit. Alright, looks like we should be in pretty good shape. Let's rebuild this a little bit though, because there's a few efficiencies that we could make here. Number one is I don't want this running all the time, so let's make sure to only turn this on when we need it. And as far as I understand, we can try this out. The space scanners, when they need vision here, they will perform a little bit better than when they don't. But these are mostly to tell you when to open and close bunker doors in time. As far as I understand, if we just plop a couple of them down and they're totally blocked, they will still do what we need them to do, which is turn these meteor blasters on in time, and we'll have a little bit of redundancy by a second one being here. So I'm going to give this a try and make sure that this works out like I expect it to for this, so that the meteor blasters will really only be running when there's a reason for them to be running. So just kind of hook up our automation like that. Pretty straightforward. And then when these send a green signal, that'll mean that there's an incoming meteor that we need to worry about. Let's also hook up these to power really quickly. The other couple things that we can do here. Number one is I have these on insulated tiles right now, but we could get some more energy out of this if we ever needed it, and we should have a lot of glass. So I'm just going to put down some glass on these tiles. We could probably also put it on these tiles to help save ourselves some metal. But I also want the mesh tiles to be here, just because I don't want the energy to be absorbed into this glass if we can help it. So there will be some debris that'll fall down here and fall down here, but if I can keep it off of these tiles, that'll mean I'll have to cool all this stuff less. So that'll help out. So when I replace this with glass and mesh tiles, we could put solar panels underneath here just to get a little bit more energy if we needed it. I'm not going to line the whole thing with solar panels right now because I don't think that we need it, but this is something cool that we could do just to increase it. So I'll just probably set one down. I'll run the wire up there and that kind of stuff. I guess we could just do it this way since we're going to need a wire up there anyway. Cancel. There we go. There. So we could just do something like this instead, and then hook up our solar panels and have solar energy being generated that way. The actual range that this covers should be enough so that if we plop a second one over here on the other side, it'll cover this whole area for as long as we might still need to run databank missions or anything like that. Eventually this will get deprecated, and we will use a different rocket setup. Probably start it somewhere down here, but I think we're going to do that in the next video because it's going to take us a while to do. So let me finish out the rest of this really quickly. Let me get all these things replaced. I know people really liking the really quicklies that I put down there, so there you go. You're welcome. We also need cooling for this area, so I'm going to throw down a few conduction panels over some spaces that will help keep everything cool. Let me cancel this one, actually. Move it over one. There. So if we have some conduction panels and we hook it into our cooling loop, which we have a loop of polluted water right here that we could definitely put in. I can delete a couple of these pipes. But we can run a loop that comes up here, cools everything down, and then comes back down just to keep this cool. Otherwise, these things will overheat or melt eventually if they get too hot. So there you go. Let's give this a try. Let me get this built out. I'll build one on the other side here as well. And then if a meteor shower comes, I will show that happening just so that we can see this all in action. But I think that'll be it, and then I think we will close out this video and head over to the next one. Alright, we've replicated the setup a second time here over on the left, which I think should protect this whole area. We're just going to have to check to see the density of the meteors that comes down and make sure that these two overlap each other enough to get basically everything. There's always going to be a chance that they miss something, but if the damage isn't too bad, then I'm totally fine with that. The last couple things that we need to do is hook up our cooling to the other side as well, so all we should need to do is repipe some stuff like that. Now we have cooling flowing over to the left and the right. We have solar panels in both places. The other thing that we need to do is start sending our blast shot up to these automatically. So I'm going to put a conveyor loader here, And I also have a storage bin where I was asking for blast shot, and just a big pile here. There's a few different ways you could do this. For right now, we're going to do it the simple way because we don't have the metal to run a line all the way down from our base that's going to be shipping this up. That's actually not that far. I will want to replace that eventually, but I feel like I need to do some more mining. Or we could send some more metal from the other asteroid. But all I'm going to be doing for right now, just to keep it simple, is the same auto sweeper conveyor loader setup. And then these can just be shipped straight into the actual meteor blasters themselves. So just something like this, pretty basic. And we'll just kind of set those two things up like that. There. So now our entire setup is done. And we can start taking more and more territory, get more solar panels up. I think we're going to want to do that, only because this setup is, like, it got us really far. I really like it for radiation, but for power, it is, I mean, it's still really strong, but the issue that I'm going to be having is, as we get out onto more and more asteroids, the performance of this is going to bog down my computer so badly that I will start losing efficiency from duplicates not doing work as quickly as they should, because they'll spend so much time looking for a task to do, because there's so many things to calculate. So yeah, we're kind of battling our own performance by this point. So I'm going to start slowly migrating up here, and then I think the next video is going to start when we have our first meteor shower, so that we can see these meteor blasters going off in the meantime. So between here and the next video, which I will try to get up as soon as I can, I know they're coming out a lot slower, but the later game definitely moves a lot slower, so it's more difficult for me to get these recorded. But yeah, so once that happens, we will come back with the next video. But in the meantime, our plan and our aim for the next video is going to be to clear out as much of the map as possible, because we are going to be creating a hilariously huge rocket setup that's going to be used to start working on the Mine the Gap achievement, which is where we send rockets out to find resources in these asteroids and mine them out and bring them back. We need to do a lot of that, which means we need a lot of rockets. We need a lot of radiation capture, so we're going to rebuild this as well. And we're going to start moving our power up into solar panels out here, so I'll take more and more territory as time goes on. So that'll be the plan. Alright, thank you very much for watching. Sorry, another big, long one, but hopefully this one was a little bit more snappy, a little quicker. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you back here for the next episode. Oh, hello, friends. You have stumbled upon a secret part of the video, in which I make a quick announcement that I'll be giving away these. These are a whole bunch of stickers that we have put together that are kind of just little references to different parts of this run. Thought it would be fun just to send them out to people that were interested. No need to buy them or anything. We're just doing this for funsies. And we will be sending them out to the first 100 people that respond. So if you're interested, check out the link that I have down in the description and fill it out, and we'll mail it out to you. US only, unfortunately. I am not very experienced shipping things internationally, and it is very complicated. So unfortunately, we're limiting this down to just US people. So if you're not in the US, the files are available to print on your own, which you can find at the forum as well in that link. We'll mail them out as soon as possible. They're like 2.5 to 3 inches each. And each one of them comes with one of each of these stickers. So if you have some places that you need to, you know, patch some holes in your boat or something, these will probably not work very well. So don't do that. But you can put them on other stuff if you want. All right. Anyway, yeah, if you're interested, fill it out. And I'll see you soon.